Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another video and today's topic is the AD Trampling of Jerusalem. Today's video is related to a video that I posted last week in which I was seeking to identify the sea beast of Revelation. Now, in videos past, I have already tackled the possibility of Rome as being the sea beast of Revelation. And let me just put in here, this is coming from a preterist perspective. I am not a futurist, so I don't think it's Donald Trump or anyone alive today. So just to get that out of the way, or any like nations, nothing like that. All right. Going back to what I was saying, though, I already tackled Rome, and that's what most preterists believe, is that Rome is the sea beast of Revelation. But there's also the possibility that it could have been the Jewish-led zealots in Jerusalem in the first century. And so in the video that I posted last week, I shared some evidence and some accounts from the writings of Josephus that seem to support the possibility of the Jewish zealots being the sea beast of the book of Revelation. And today's video is going to just cover some more of these accounts that by Josephus that do seem to correlate with the zealots being the sea beast. Now, as I mentioned before, Rome is usually given the credit, we'll say the credit, for being the sea beast of Revelation. The reason that I have an issue with this, I'm not saying that it's not Rome, but the reason that I'm staying away from 100% calling Rome the sea beast is because, yes, Rome certainly did have, they had a huge hand in the destruction of Jerusalem, but it was actually the Jewish zealots that destroyed most of Jerusalem. Many of the prophecies were fulfilled through things that the zealots did. And in fact, considering that Rome was used as a tool by the Lord himself in his judgment of Jerusalem, I have a hard time seeing Rome being used by God, but then also being the sea beast. All right. So I'm getting these quotes today. There's a really great website I shared in the last video called Preterist Papers, and they have so many papers on so many topics. And so this one is coming from their paper called Evidence from Josephus Regarding the Beast. And so I will leave a link in the description box if you would like to take a look at that or any of their other papers. But first of all, let's go and to see what the Bible says about the trampling of Jerusalem. Luke 21:24. They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive among all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now let's go to Revelation 11:2. But do not measure the court outside the temple. Leave that out, for it is given over to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months. Since I just read this verse, I'm just going to throw this in there very quickly, that this verse is actually one of the internal evidences that the book of Revelation was written before AD 70, because as you notice, John was told to measure the court outside the temple. So it certainly seems like Revelation was written while the temple was still standing, because the temple was destroyed in AD 70. So I just, wanted to point that out to anyone who may not have noticed, because there is a debate between when the book of Revelation was written. So anyway, as you can see, this talks about the trampling of Jerusalem, and it mentions being trampled by the nations, being trampled by the Gentiles. And many times people will look at this and they will automatically think it was Rome. Rome, again, they certainly did play a part in the destruction of Jerusalem. But today I wanted to share with you, like I said before, some writings from Josephus, he was a Jewish historian. He was actually a general, I believe, in one of the zealot armies. There were 3 factions of zealots in Jerusalem, and Josephus was a general. He ended up defecting to Rome, and then he wrote all of these accounts. So he was an eyewitness to the things that happened during this time. The first is from Josephus's Wars, and this is an account by a high priest who was despairing over the trampling of the sanctuary by the zealots. Now bear with me, because when I printed this out, the writing is really, really light. I think it's the color font that they might have used in their PDFs, but it's really hard to see. But anyway, this is what this high priest said. And this place, which is adored by the habitable world and honored by such as only know it by report, as far as the ends of the earth, is trampled upon by these wild beasts born among ourselves, meaning the Jews. So as you notice, this, according to this high priest, he called the zealots beasts, which was a point that I made in the last video, is that it was very common for these zealots to be called beasts, and we have the possibility again of them being called the sea beast, or the beast of the sea. And additionally, according to this high priest, it was the zealots who were trampling the sanctuary. No mention from this high priest of it being Rome. Here is a quote also from Wars, and this is the high priest Ananus, and he also was despairing of the trampling of Jerusalem and the temple by the zealots. And here is what he had to say. How then can we avoid shedding of tears when we see the Roman donations in our temple, while we withal see those of our own nation, the Jews, taking our spoils and plundering our glorious metropolis and slaughtering our men, from which enormities those Romans themselves would have abstained, to see those Romans never going beyond the bounds allotted to profane persons, nor venturing to break in upon any of our sacred customs, nay, having a horror on their minds when they view at a distance those sacred walls, while some that have been born in this very country and brought up in our customs and called Jews, do walk about in the midst of the holy places, at the very time when their hands are still warm with the slaughter of their own countrymen. So here we have the high priest Ananus. He was saying that Rome, they did not even try to venture in to this part of the temple. Yet the zealots, who they were born in that country, they were raised as Jews. They knew that it was only the priests, the high priests, that were supposed to be in that area. And yet the zealots were running around in there, not caring, while it was Rome that was, can I say respectful enough? Would that make a difference? I don't want to say respectful, but Rome even respected their customs of not going into there. But it was the Jewish-led zealots who indeed ended up doing that and profaning the temple. Okay, and lastly, this is a shorter one today. Lastly, I'm going to share with you a quote by Jesus of Gamaliel. I probably said that wrong. And again, he was also grieved over the trampling of the sanctuary by the zealots. And here's what he had to say. Will you bear to see your sanctuary trampled on? And will you lay steps for these profane wretches, upon which they may mount to higher degrees of insolence? And this was also regarding the zealots. So as you can see from these eyewitness accounts of these high priests, they were not blaming Rome for the trampling of Jerusalem and the trampling of the temple. They were blaming the Jewish-led zealots. And as we saw in the first example, he called them beasts, which I'm going to remind you was common in that time period to call the zealots beasts. So it's just something to think about, something to add on to the list of possibilities of identifying the sea beast as the Jewish zealots instead of Rome. But that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.